Hello and welcome to this podcast, part of the project The Women Founders of Sociology, the Chicago Women's School. Our coordinator and lecturer is Maria José del Pino Espejo from the course Sociología Económica of the University Pablo de Olavide in Sevilla, Spain. We are Erasmus students Tessa Eikelenboom and Khalil Jallo from the home university, Saxion University of Applied Sciences in Deventer, the Netherlands, part of the study International Business. Today we will present to you the Chicago Women's School of Sociology. The Chicago Women's School of Sociology is a term used to describe the network of women who work to produce a body of sociology linking social theory, sociological research, and social reform. The body of work produced by these women primarily occurred between 1890 and 1920 and was largely based out of the University of Chicago and out of the Hull House. They created sociology in a shared context of ideas and actions which supported women in the move into public life. The Chicago Women's School of Sociology work was rooted in various social theories, but they were highly influenced by Jane Addams and her thoughts on social reform. Today we will present to you the following 5 members of the school: Sophonisba Breckenridge, Frances Keller, Julia Lathrop, Annie Mary McLean, and Marian Talbot.
The first woman we will be presenting is Sophonisba Breckenridge. Sophonisba Breckenridge was born on the 1st of April 1866 and died in 1948. She was an American activist, progressive era social reformer, social scientist, and innovator in higher education. As a social scientist, teaching and research conductor, Breckenridge focused on the intersection of the social problems, public policy, and social reforms with an emphasis on immigrants, African American, child laborers, and working women in American urban centers. From the beginning, she took an activist approach in this. In 1907, she joined the Hull House Project. Breckenridge and Abbott played an important role in designing, promoting, and implementing several New Deal programs, including the Social Security Act of 1935, which laid the groundwork for the modern welfare state. A lifelong advocate of maximum hour and minimum wage legislation, Breckenridge also helped promote the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938. Sophonisba and Florence Kelley both participated in the NAACP, which was the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. Sophonisba has made a major contribution to the economy because she stood up for the rights of immigrants, African American, child laborers, and working women. And she also contributed to the struggle that women should also be able to work and wanted to prevent children from having to work.
Julia Lathrop. Julia was an American social reformer in the area of education, social policy, and children's welfare. She was the first woman ever to head a United States federal bureau. In the 1890s, she moved to Chicago, where she joined Jane Addams, Ellen Gates Starr, other women of the Chicago Women's School, and other social reforms at the Hull House. Lathrop ran a discussion group called the Plato Club in the early days of the House. The women at the Hull House actively campaigned to persuade Congress to pass legislation to protect children. Julia was a pivotal agent in the reformation of juvenile judicial system. Before legislation was established, there was no separate court system for child criminals and adults. Julia, with the help of associates, Chicago Women's Club, and Chicago Bar Association, secured legislation for the separation, and the first juvenile court system in the country was created. In 1893, Lathrop was appointed as the first ever woman member of the Illinois State Board of Charities, beginning a lifelong work in civil service reform. She advocated for the training of professional social workers and standardizing employment procedures. This would lead to opening the labor market for educated women, and this way Julia contributed economically, as she was part of the reason why educated women could find a job and start earning a living.
Now I will present Frances Keller. Frances Keller was born in 1873 and died in 1952. She was an American social reformer and investigator who specialized in the study of immigrants to the United States and women. She became managing director of the North American Civic League for Immigrants and was member, secretary, and treasurer of the New York State Immigration Commission. These platforms promise to provide immigrants more opportunities to succeed, as well as reverse policies that neglected immigrants and their rights. Keller is credited with creating the concept, if not the term, of multiculturalism. She believed no social advancement could reasonably occur in the United States without women having full enfranchisement. She felt the same about the roles of black women and men as well as immigrants in American society. Keller focused her attention on accessing equality for women, and her writings on black women and men contravened the sociological perspective at the time that black criminality was a factor of biology and race. Keller was certain it was directly related to poverty and racism and lack of access to a living wage. She wrote about how black women were still being sold as slaves and how sex, crime, and race were linked incorrectly. Keller has made a major contribution to the economy because she stood up for the rights of black women and men, as well as immigrants, and she also fought racism. Keller wanted women and immigrants to have jobs.
Marion Talbot. Marion Talbot was Dean of Women at the University of Chicago from 1895 to 1925. She was an influential leader in the higher education of women in the U.S. She co-founded the American Association of University Women and fought strongly and often successfully to improve support for women students and against efforts to restrict equal access to educational opportunities. In her role as Dean of Women, she was responsible for living conditions of the women students at the university, and she interpreted this as a mission to change the conventional life of women to include education for entering society. While promoting living conditions for university women and objecting to academic discrimination based on gender, she firmly opposed the establishment of national sororities at the University of Chicago. By being a leader in the higher education of women and supporting women students, she had an important role economically as she prepared women with the education before entering society, allowing them to find jobs and make money.
Now I will present Annie Marion McLean. Annie Marion McLean was born in 1870 and died in 1934. Annie Marion McLean was an American sociologist of the Women's Chicago School who has been erased from history. She was one of the first women to pursue a professional career in sociology. She is remembered for her pioneering work in the participants' observation and her application of her sociological findings to immediate social problems. Much of her research involved entering the workplace and observing the horrible conditions that workers, especially women, had to work in. She is particularly known for her studies of working and immigrant women. She advocated for women's rights in the workplace along with better working conditions, and she did this by relaying her information to the proper authorities. McLean's work was on the forefront of the women's rights movements. McLean's research career reached its peak with a study that she supervised under the auspices. The study led to her path-breaking work on women's employment. The main profession, aside from her research, was a teacher. She taught throughout her whole life at different universities, for example at the University of Chicago. Keller has made a major contribution to the economy because she fought for the rights of immigrants and other social problems in society. Our summary and conclusion. All the women that we mentioned have contributed economically because they have educated women. The Chicago women are important to us today, both for the content of their sociology and as role models who successfully combined research with a commitment to improve social change. Some, especially the Abbotts, Breckinridge, Keller, and McLean, came to the commitment to use social research for social improvements only after they had had university study. Here we have the sources that we have used to come to our information about the women and what they have done for the society. And thank you for listening to our podcast.